Hey folks, how you guys doing? Hope you're all having a great day today. In this video I want to share with you my sharpening process. I have seen a tremendous amount of sharpening videos. I've seen a lot of sharpening articles. I've seen so many people say that this particular method with these particular products is the best thing you should, it's the best way to go and you should just use this. And I've seen a lot of homemade gizmos and gadgets. And I have done a tremendous amount of unnecessary sharpening in my own shop with my own stuff to figure out what works for me, to figure out what doesn't work, what I do and do not like, and to figure out a process that is quick and efficient and something that I don't have to think about. You just do it and get back to work. So with that being said, I want to hopefully focus on the process more than the products because yes, I use a grinder. Any grinder will work. There's cheaper ones, there's more expensive ones. I use diamond plates for my abrasive surface, but any abrasive surface will work. Sandpaper on glass or any flat surface, water stones, more expensive ceramic stones, any abrasive surface will work. And then a leather strap for maintenance stuff. So I have leather with a polishing compound on top. You don't even have to use leather. You could use it, like a lot of people use MDF with polishing compound. So put the products aside. I will talk about the products, but kind of put that to the side in the back of your head and more so focus on the process, the technique, and why each one is used at various different stages. So I have two chisels and a plane iron here, and these aren't the greatest examples of something that needs to be sharpened because, well, these are the worst ones I could find and they're in really good shape. That's just, I guess, a testament of keeping your tools in good shape. But in this case, you can see every one of these has these lines in the middle, and these are the hollow grind lines that were created from the grinder. This creates a radius that is the same radius of the wheels, and if there's a radius on this face here, then that means that this leading edge and this trailing edge are the two contact points that will reference off of the abrasive surface. That's what makes this process a lot easier, a lot quicker and more efficient on the abrasive surface because you have two reference places rather than trying to sharpen all of this or establish all of this edge on the abrasive surface. So this front edge on all three of these is polished, and you can see this one is probably, let me look at the monitor, that one is probably the worst of the three, and it's in really good shape. So there you go, that darker spot, that's the polished front edge. And as that polished edge creeps back up, the more you do it, it'll creep back up to here, and sometimes this edge will get polished on accident and creep down. And the more that you maintain on the leather strap, the less you keep this hollow grind, and eventually you will have to go back to the grinder to reestablish this. Now this hollow grind, again, the front edge and the back edge, that establishes your cutting angle, and you can manipulate that just a little bit while you're on the abrasive surface. So none of these really need to go through the entire process, but it's much easier to show you with a plane blade. So that's what I'm going to use to show you the entire sharpening process. And when I use this on the grinder, I want to get this hollow grind extended as far as I can this way and extended as far as I can towards the edge without touching this front edge. So I want to leave just a tiny amount of polish all the way across, and that's because it's really easy to mess up and change your angle. As far as this cutting edge being square to the sides, it's really easy to accidentally screw that up on the grinder, and it's very easy to maintain consistency with just this little front edge on the plates. So first step is the grinder. For chisels and plane blades, I use this flat adjustment platform up against this wheel to determine the appropriate angle. Now when I set this, I don't use any gauges or anything to tell me. What I use is my eyes to set the radius of the wheel, the surface of the wheel. I want it to be dead center or as close to center on this bevel as I can possibly get it. And what I do is just kind of hold it in place, spin the wheel back, and you should be able to see where you're sharpening. And in this case, I think I'm dead on because I can't see any extra on top or bottom. But if this polished face is almost all the way across, or if the polished face takes up a lot more surface than what it does in this example, you can really see where you're scratching just by holding it in place and spinning the wheel just a little bit. Oh, there you go. You can see, let's see, let me move this. You can kind of see right up there, that's where I'm hitting. I think I'm hitting a little too high. So let's put this back in and see. That's a little high. I'll make an adjustment really quick. There we go. It's hard to see, but this is extending it's extending down symmetrical on top and bottom. So now this is set up for grinding this angle. Again, I don't really concern myself too much with the cutting angle. I know the about range, and that depends on the task. A low angle hand plane is going to have a much less of an angle for the iron. Went blank there. And setting this up for chisels is the exact same way. It's kind of quick and easy when I'm not trying to explain it. So now I'll actually cut the hollow grind and extend these grind lines up as far as I can without disturbing that polished face. And when I do so, I want to gently push the blade into the wheel and go horizontally to the right and then horizontally to the left. Just in and out and light pressure. In and out, side by side. And we don't want to remove a tremendous amount. We don't want to heat up the blade. Light pressure is all you need. So there you go. Just a very, very tiny amount of pressure. You can see that the hollow grind was established. I didn't go all the way over here. This is the previous hollow grind, but I did go all the way up to the top to change or to keep that polished edge. There you go. You can see it good there. And if I was to go a little bit more over here just to change this hollow grind, it would have changed that. This is fine.
Click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
After the grinder, I'll use these diamond plates to establish a sharp front edge. And what I have here is DMT diamond plates. Again, you can use anything. And they are resting on top of some of this anti-skid mat, like for kitchen cabinets. And that is all on this piece of plywood. This whole setup is several years old and grimy, but it does the job. On this front edge, I have another piece of plywood screwed vertically to the bottom of it. That way it acts as a cleat, and I can just rest it forward up against any edge. I used to use one of these guides, honing guides, to establish the edge and do all my sharpening, but this slows me down, and I went to freehand, and it's really easy to do freehand, so this is unnecessary in my opinion, but you can still use one of these if you want. And also, this is a very inexpensive one I picked up off Amazon, and as you can see, it's all chewed up and filed down. That's because these inexpensive ones aren't machined to the greatest specifications. They're really not. However, there is a very awesome video that I will link to that shows you how to take one of these inexpensive ones and file it down to where it'll actually work really well. And that's what I had to do for this. But this, like so with the blade, and these stops positioned over here will allow you to have repeatable setups if you want to use one of these. So you will have to add some stops to whatever surface you're using to make things quick and easy and repeatable. I don't use any of this. Those just live right there. I also have a ruler for the ruler trick for sharpening the back edge of plain blades only. This ruler trick, which I'll show you, never, ever use it with chisels. You will ruin the chisel edge. So this stays in here like so. And then also these plates are, it's recommended that you use water, just soapy water, to act as a lubricant and to get the slurry away. I had bad luck with water and soapy water and simple green and some other different things that I've tried. They kept gumming up the cutting surfaces, especially this coarse one, to where I'd have to use some like powdered cleaner and a wire brush to clean out the pitting, or clean out the waste inside here. So instead I switched over to using regular 3-in-1 oil, which is what's in here, and it's not recommended, but a lot of other people that I've talked to said that that's what they use and it works the best. I switched to using 3-in-1 oil, and it's way better in my opinion. The oil does a tremendous job of removing the stuff as you're sharpening, and since I switched over to oil, I've never had to clean these plates. Now, this is coarse, this is extra fine DMT plates. I had one in the middle that was extra fine, and that gave me approximately 300 grit, 800 grit, 8,000 grit. And I found the middle one to just be unnecessary. So this one will really quickly establish a sharp edge. This one will sharpen it a little bit more. And then, of course, the polishing will be done with the leather strop. The process is really quick. Again, it's a little bit of a mix between Paul Sellers, Rob Cosman. And Rob Cosman has a fantastic method for actually holding the plane blade to the work surface. And what he does is he interlocks his hands and uses 4 fingers in a combination from both hands on the back of the plane. So this goes a little bit like so. I'm right-handed, so my right hand, my right index finger is all the way down here at this edge. My left thumb is on the side of the plane blade right here. Now my other hand, I use the first 3 fingers over here for the downward pressure on the cutting edge, but when I do so, the back 3 fingers over here on the cutting edge, and when I do so, this index finger goes into this hole, and between the index finger and my thumb, I'm locking the plane blade with my hand. This is kind of hard to show on camera. And I'm also locking my thumbs together, like so. So when you hold it, you can lock your hands together and get a really firm grip on the plane blade. It's not going anywhere, and you have a tremendous amount of control, rather than trying to hold it like so or whatever. So this acts as a substitute, a very controlled substitute for this thing. Now, as far as establishing the angle, it's a hollow grind, so you have a front edge and a back edge. So with your hands in place, you can rock it back and forth until you hear and feel those little clicks. So once you're on there, when I go to sharpen, I'll find the angle with the bevels, the hollow grind rather, and I'll lift up just a little bit. That means I'm only touching this front edge. So whatever a little bit is, that's your discretion. So from here, that's a little bit for me. And then once I go to sharpen, I'm keeping my wrists locked. My wrists are not moving. I'm using my body back and forth to sharpen this edge, and that just gives me a lot of consistency. When I lift up, again, I'm keeping my wrists the same angle, and what I'm doing is pushing my fingers forward to feel for a burr on this top side. If there's no burr, then the edge is not sharp. That's all there is to it. So again, I'll use a little bit of oil as a lubricant and also to get the waste away. I don't apply the oil directly to the extra fine. What I do is when I'm done here, I'll wipe it onto a rag to just kind of clean this plate up, and then whatever's on the rag, I'll use that as a really good cleaner of this plate before I start, and it also lubricates it just a little bit. If I apply the oil directly to this, like I did here, it's too thick. The blade will just float over it. But if I just add a very thin layer, like I'm almost washing this, it works really well. And you'll see this build up as I use it. So here we go. Hold it like so. Find my angle. And I'm actually just going to smear this oil around just a little bit. Find my angle. Lift up just a little bit. And then move however you want to move, so long as you're consistent. I'm just trying to smear the oil around at first. I like to go in circles, back and forth in both directions, sometimes figure 8, doesn't matter. I don't like to go straight because I find that whatever inconsistency I have in my pressure is magnified that way. If I do circles, it kind of evens things out. But it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of downward pressure either. And you can see your progress a lot by the slurry you're creating. As it gets darker, that's obviously waste being removed from the blade. So, check my progress. I feel a burr, and it's higher. It's a really good burr on the right, not so much on the left. So I'll go back to where I was, and I'm putting a little more pressure down on my left. All right, there we go. I feel the burr quite well on my left side. So now I'm done with this course. I'll clean this up just a little bit, and whatever's on this, again, cleans and polishes this side, or applies a little thin layer on this side. I'll wipe this off real fast, and we'll get back to business. But when I do this one, all right, so there's my 2 contact points, and I lift it up just a little bit to get to here, Now just to speed things up, I'm going to lift up a tiny bit more and do the same thing. So that's a little bit of the Rob Cosman, you know, the tertiary bevel is what he calls it, 3 bevels. It's all you're doing is really just making the very front leading edge the only thing that's exposed to the abrasive surface, and it makes a lot of sense. Don't be concerned with the technical terms and all that other stuff. So you're just getting that edge sharpened a little bit, and that feels good. We'll go ahead and wipe this off, and that's it. So how do I remove the burr? You can go from right here to the leather strap and just use the strap to remove the burr all completely. But I use the ruler trick to speed up the process just a little bit. And what this does is it creates a very, very, very tiny back bevel on the back of the blade that goes the entire length. And if there's a small, tiny little back bevel, then you don't have to spend a lot of time polishing the back and making sure the back is super, super flat. Because again, only that front edge is what's going to be doing the cutting action. So this is a metal ruler. I have no idea how thick it is. What really matters is you use the same one over and over again. So I don't care about the thickness. I'm just using this over and over again. With the blade like this, it elevates this side, which pushes this side down into the surface. So I'll start with it off of the plate, and there's a burr on the back side. So I'll back up into it, back and forth a couple times, like so. Just staying within like the first 1/4 inch of the surface, and a little bit of even pressure all the way across. And there you go, the burr will peel right off, and there's no way for me to show this on camera because my lens won't focus that quick, that close rather. But you gotta trust me here that I got a burr in my hand. There you go. That's all the work that needs to be done on these plates, and as you can see, that reduces the amount of wear and tear on these plates, these surfaces, a tremendous amount, because again, all we're using these for is to establish the front edge, not this entire bevel. So these should last a lot longer. And for reference sake, I've had these for, I guess, over 3 years now, something like that, and kind of have a love-hate relationship with them. 3 years with very little maintenance, that's kind of impressive. But I've also got a lot of it wearing away on the edges, and this one's got some ripples in it, so I don't know if you can trust how flat it is. That being said, I guess those complaints are kind of null and void because this is crazy sharp already. The last step is to use this leather strop to polish that edge so it works really, or cuts really, really well. So I have a piece of leather, fuzzy side up, and I just rub some of this polishing compound on top of it, and then I also have a piece of leather that is fuzzy side down with nothing on it. This is just grime from being used so many times. And like I said, this is what will be used 9 times out of 10. Out of all of my sharpening stuff, this gets used way more than anything else. And because it's much easier to maintain a consistently sharp edge with a leather strop than it is to let this thing get kind of, out of shape and dull a tremendous amount that you have to go through the process with the other stuff again. So let's talk about the strap itself. You can use just a piece of leather on a block of wood. That's all you need. Or you can use some MDF with a polishing compound on top of it. Again, don't even have to use leather. In this case, I have it attached to a really fancy machined flat surface. This is a Convenient Sharpening Deluxe from Sean Graham of Worth the Effort on YouTube. Sean's a tremendously good guy, great teacher. Check out his channel. It's definitely worth watching some of his content. But this particular device is machined flat on both sides, I think, and I have the leather on one side. On this side, he's got a split down the middle, so you can attach 2 different pieces of really fine sandpaper to do some touch-up stuff. There's a radius edge on this side for, like chisel gouges and whatnot. And he does have 2 or 3, I guess, different setup areas over here if you wanted to use one of these guys with your hand plane. And there's also 2 radius setups over here. So when you go to set up your grinder in the very beginning, you can set this on the tool rest, and put this bevel into the grinder wheel to set a constant angle every time if you wanted to do that. So again, he calls this the Convenient Sharpening Deluxe. Keyword there is convenient. If you want to buy one, he sells them. That's the convenient part. If you don't want to spend your money buying one of these, he also has a really good video showing you how to make your own. So he's a great guy, great teacher. Check it out. But this is my leather strap, and also there's a hole in one side that I just pop up a bench dog on one side. Obviously you keep it below the surface to kind of hold it in place as I pull this that direction. So here we go. Same process as with the abrasive plates. I use the same hand holding technique to maintain that same angle. That gives me some good downward pressure and keeps the angle the same as I use it through the leather strap. Now the things you don't want to do, you don't want to drag off the back edge of the strap, because what it does is as you drag back, it's the same thing as picking up the back end of the blade and you round over that edge. It's the same thing. Again, because of that, you don't want to go crazy fast, in my opinion, because you lose control, and what you typically end up doing is you try to advance before you're done stopping. So if you're pulling back and you're not done stopping, but you try and advance your hands, what do? That means you roll forward as you're going like that. You end up rolling forward before you get done. So controlled strokes, it doesn't take much, and there's not much effort involved in holding the plane as it should. So find your angle, lock your wrists, lock your arms, use your body, maybe 10 or 15. You don't have to go crazy with this, just so long as you are touching the front edge at about the same angle you were sharpening with on the stones. And again, that's established by the two edges of the hollow grind. And then you do that a couple times. Go to the back side, and I'll pull this along the back side, and then I'll just do the same thing on this one over here. So imagine if you're using your hand plane and it just feels just a little bit dull, it doesn't feel crazy sharp. Well, pop the blade off, do this little strap setup, and then put it back into the blade and get back to work. It's very fast once I adopted this system rather. Same thing with chisels. If you're knocking out a mortise and it's just not cutting the way you want to, stop, give it a couple straps for about 20-30 seconds, and get back to business. Excuse me. So, how sharp is it right off of this? That should have polished it. Wasn't much effort at all. That should have polished it enough to shave hair. That's my test. It's binary. It shaves hair or it doesn't. It's sharp or it's not. That's my test. And sometimes the more I use hand tools, the less hair I have in my arms, basically. So let me show you. Some people don't like shaving hair, but there you go. Some hair right there in my arm. And all you need is the weight of the blade, gravity. You don't need to hold it in and dig it into your arm. It's sharp or it's not. So will it shave hair? Yes, it will, effortlessly, just with gravity. That means that edge is sharp, it's ready to go. Just to recap, I know this video may be a little bit long-winded, but I did want to cover all the processes, as I use them. And I don't use them all the time. Like I said, I primarily use the leather strap way more than I ever use these two. And a bench grinder is one of those tools that you can have. You can get good use out of it for a variety of tasks. So this isn't dedicated to sharpening plane blades and chisels. You can use it for a tremendous amount of things. And of course, there's no setup jigs or anything with these diamond plates or water stones or whatever. So of course, you can use them to sharpen anything you want. It's not dedicated to these things. And a leather strap. Sharpen anything on a leather strap. So there's a lot of uses for all of these. Hopefully you understand the benefit of this three-step process. The bulk removal with a grinder, because it's a machine, it's fast, it's effective. Because you do the bulk of the removal here, it's much less wear and tear on these surface plates, abrasive plates, stones, whatever, because all you're using these for is just the front edge, and all you need to do there is establish an edge, because you're going to polish very quickly with a leather strap, and that's where you get the really, really sharp edge. Hopefully that helps. I'm not trying to sell any of these products, but I know someone's going to ask, so I will have all of these listed for what I use. And yeah, I'm kind of rambling and talking over myself. So you guys take care. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next video.